limits have decided that the best thing for them to do, which I thought that they had asked, in fact, it is their agenda that we are looking at because it was prepared by Ms. Sandra Morehart, who is against term limits. She put the agenda together against my approval and evidently with the approval of Mr. Ray. And that's the agenda that was presented to me this morning. So I can only assume if they put the agenda together that for some reason they are not happy with their own agenda. So I would just say that we take a look. We cannot, this is like a work session, or it's like, it could be like a work session, or it can be considered a public session in which we cannot take any action, which would mean that all the actions that are currently have been approved and handled will just stand. There are 17 additional items that the Charter Review Commission would like to review and vote on. But we cannot do that unless we have 5 attending members. So I would ask the members of the media that maybe you need to reach out to the other members of the Charter Commission and find out why they were not able to attend. I find it interesting that they all might have had family emergencies or be sick. It could be just a pure coincidence. Things like that, I guess, can happen. But with that being said, let me go ahead and do the official.
Sir, if I may.
What is it, Mr. Ray?
I would like to address some of the comments that you just made, some of the comments you made this morning on the radio, some of the comments that you may have made.
We're not here to debate.
Sir, this is not a meeting.
Mr.
Ray,
you don't have. Mr. Ray.
Well, you don't like debate.
Ray,
you like to monopolize the time.
We are not here to debate. Okay?
This is not a debate, but you have said false things.
I have a First Amendment question for you, Mr. City Attorney.
I'm not
We,
the
the
city
public,
attorney.
I believe this is a public facility, and I think the people that came to this meeting should have a right to speak in an open forum.
I'm here
that's-
to
that I'm a
call
part
on
of this
Mr. Crockett.
community too, and
I
I'd
would
like.
like to call on Mr. Crockett, who's, as a citizen, has come forward to make a comment at this
Sir,
work
this
session.
is not a meeting, and you're not in control
It is
of a
a-
meeting.
Nor are you, Mr. City Attorney, because it's not a meeting
In fact,
yet,
let me
and this
point
is a
out-
public
wait,
facility.
Let me point out something, Mr. Ray, that you said to me on Friday. You said, "I am not the legal counsel."
That is correct.
I am no more than a member, and I am a non-voting member.
That is correct.
So I appreciate it. I will happy to get your comments in a minute, but I'm not going to have you attack me.
Under what authority
on a
are
pers-
you doing
I'm not going to
this?
have you attack
Mr.
me
Ray,
personally.
because we have a First Amendment
Do I not
authority
have that
right
same
now.
right?
No, well, you know what? I think you need to be a person of the city and not obstruct the public who would like to
fact,
speak.
Let us have order here, one at a time. Mr. Ray started. If you'd finish, Mr. Ray,
Thank
I
you,
would
Mr.
appreciate
Johnson.
that.
I have the same First Amendment right that you do, Colonel Crockett, and that you do, Mr. Friedley.
But you're being paid.
Let's
Not
give
for this
time to
work,
the
I'm
speaker.
not. This is a volunteer position. I have paid work that I need to be doing in my office. This is volunteer work, and I have done a tremendous amount of it, and I have done, I believe, a fair job. Unlike Mr. Friedley, who wants to run into the media and say things, and then just like he tried to do, he doesn't want the truth to be told. So let me correct the issues on this issue with the agenda. On February the 12th, this body, in an open meeting, adopted Robert's Rules 12th edition as their general rules. I counseled them, I begged them early to adopt specific rules. They chose not to. So they adopted Robert's Rules of Order, version 12, as their rules. We have had probably 8 or 10 or more
Which I have a
meetings.
copy for anybody who'd like to look.
Great, I do too. I've had one from the beginning, and we've made notes and we've talked about it. I've read mine, have you?
I have.
And so,
And please, Mr. Ray, try to be less
you're not a
emotional.
chairman, we're not in a meeting. You don't have any authority over
This is a
me.
work session, and you don't have to be rude.
I'm not being rude.
You
You're
are
being rude by
loud and
interrupting
rude.
me.
You are being loud and rude, Mr. Johnson, so please make your
I'm not
comments
Mr.
and
Johnson,
please keep
but,
them calm.
uh,
Mr.
if-
Johnson has said that you feel free to talk.
Okay. Every meeting that we've had before, The secretary, your appointed secretary that you nominated and voted for, has sent a draft agenda to all of the members. Some days she's done it 12, 13 days ahead of time. Some days she's done it 4 or 5 days ahead of time, but she's always sent it ahead of time for comment by the group. She gives a deadline for comment and for changes. You, sir, have never commented on any of it. You've never approved or disapproved one in all of the prior meetings. Let me speak.
Go ahead.
I let you speak. You let me speak.
Great. You are allowed to be as inaccurate as you'd like.
Last week, well, let me go back. On May the 21st, we met in this room. We began to vote on items. We voted on 55 items in this charter. Towards the end of that meeting, it was brought up, in fact, Mr. Johnson made a motion that we be able to bring those items back up and put them in old business and have them readdressed in the following meeting on June the 10th. And that is exactly what was done. In the agenda for the June the 10th meeting, the 55, what we called consensus items that we voted on in an open meeting that took hours, that was on the June 10th agenda under old business for reconsideration at your request, Mr. Johnson, and at your request, Mr. Friedley. The old business that had been voted on in a meeting with a quorum was placed under old business. No one seemed to have a problem with it when it was done, when it was done at your request. Mr. Johnson actually said, we have 18 months to conclude our business. This was on May the 21st. We need to pump the brakes and take our time. The next meeting was scheduled for June the 10th. Then on May the 23rd, 12 days before that meeting, the secretary, as she's done every single time, sent a draft agenda. And it's important to note that an agenda is adopted in a meeting with a quorum. Everything that's sent before that is just a draft agenda. It's just a suggestion. And by the way, under Robert's Rules, version 12, which you adopted, the secretary, and this is Rule 473310, 43:3310, the secretary and only the secretary is to prepare prior to each meeting an order of business to be used by the presiding officer.
Would you please read from, I think it's Rule
I'll read the whole
78,
thing.
Rule 78 that says what the responsibilities of the
Well, sir,
chairman
this is
are?
my time. If you want to
Would you-
deal with it in your time, this is my time.
May I borrow your book, Mr.?
Yes, here it is.
Thank you.
You can borrow mine when I'm done. So the secretary has the role of preparing the agenda. The secretary for this organization has prepared the draft agenda every single time. Then, when she sent the agenda out, she followed the same procedure that was done for the June 10th meeting. She put the items that had been considered under old business, just as had been done for the prior meeting at your request. Then a series of emails ensued, and it seemed to be that this was, you were accusing Ms. Morehart of following a brand-new procedure that had never been followed. And ultimately, she sent an email out with all of the dates in response to that. There was a series of emails, and this hasn't been discussed. It's curious that none of this has been discussed in any of the media accounts. But Ms. Morehart sent an email out that showed exactly when she sent the proposed agenda out for each meeting and how many days ahead of time it was. And then when she sent the proposed agenda for today's meeting, there was initially no comment. Then Friday morning, you came to my office. You didn't make an appointment. You called my staff and said you were coming in 30 minutes. I met with you. You wanted me to send out your revised agenda to the entire group. I told you I was uncomfortable doing that. That's not my role. Exactly. I told you I'm not your legal counsel. I'm not the legal counsel to this organization. I'm not even the city attorney. I'm filling in for the city attorney who is out on medical leave. But that I was uncomfortable sending out an agenda that followed a procedure that had not been followed for any of the prior meetings and that was not done by the secretary when the secretary, who is the person to do that and has done it every time, had sent out an agenda. I asked you to take your agenda, send it to the entire group, and give them a deadline for their response if you felt like you had an alternate agenda to use. You didn't do that. You went back and you sent an email to the entire group, and you said, this is the agenda we're going to use. And that was it. It was your edict. That is not what we discussed, sir. I asked you to send it to the entire group for their comment. You did not do that. You sent it out with an edict that is the agenda that would be used. Then you sent me a separate email, and again, I don't work for you, sir. I work for the citizens of Bossier City. I don't work for you. You sent me an email, and only to me, instructing me to provide Mr. Marriott with information that he had asked in a public records request, and commanding that I post your agenda at 3 p.m. that day. Later that day, Ms. Morehart sent an email to the entire group objecting to the fact that your agenda was going to be used, and she sent a series of emails objecting to that. I left Friday evening with this quandary of what to do. Do I follow your instructions, which I think are improper and totally inconsistent with all of the process that we have followed so far? Or do I follow the process of what we have done so far? Monday morning, I had full intention of just posting both agendas, but I realized to even do that is inconsistent with what we have done. You sent emails to this entire group, even to Ms. Morehart, and you said that she would be able to address those issues today. If I posted your agenda with nothing in it, under Louisiana law, it would take a majority vote for those issues to be addressed. And you know that just as good as I do. And so you didn't intend for those people to be able to talk about those things. You wanted your agenda to be posted so that nothing could be discussed, unlike the prior meeting when you insisted that that 55 items that had already been voted on would be placed under old business and readdressed. You chose a totally inconsistent procedure. You have no authority to unilaterally set an agenda, not under Robert's rules, not under Louisiana law.
Can we
So
pause and at least,
I
mean, you're
did what-
Mr.
Sir.
Colonel David, Colonel.
Well, listen.
Let him continue to pontificate as much as he'd like.
Sir, will you let me speak? Look, I've listened to both of you guys.
I just
a
gave you the
tremendous
right.
amount.
I just gave you the right. Go ahead.
Well, then stop talking. You were on the radio this morning, and then you've already scheduled another radio interview in the morning, so let me give you a lot of show prep, okay?
I
Because the
appreciate
things
your
that you
guidance.
say are untrue, sir. They are absolutely untrue, and I'm going to call you on it every
Well,
single
that's okay.
time.
I've got a list of your untruths so far.
Go for it. Go for it.
Are you finished?
I'm not finished.
Then go on.
I don't need your,
I did not realize you had actually taken a side.
I don't take a side. I take the side of truth and the rule of law and the rule of these rules. Everyone here that has been a part of this, Mr. Johnson knows what I'm saying is true. Mr. Jeter knows what I'm saying is true. Ms. Nottingham knows what I'm saying is true. Mr. Crockett knows what I'm saying is true. So when you left my office on Friday, I clearly made it clear to you that I was not going to send anything out. Then
Wait, okay. Who did you ask to send it out?
I asked you to send it to the group for their comment with a deadline, and you
Which
didn't
I
do that.
did.
No, you did not.
I did, and
No,
said
you
that
did
we
not.
were planning to post it by 3 p.m. If they had any issues, please address those.
That's a lie. I have the email. You said,
Please
this is-
read the email. Please read the email.
I'll read it in a minute.
Oh.
But once again, you have an inability to acknowledge or speak the truth. So,
Oh, gosh, and you're an attorney. Oh, my gosh. Okay, go ahead.
so Monday morning, I posted the agenda and just the same way that I've done it for every other meeting, which was the agenda prepared by the secretary who has the authority to do it. And that would give people the ability to address those issues today or not address those issues. An agenda is not an agenda until you
When
adopt
the
it.
secretary submits the agenda.
It's a draft.
and It is a draft, and if any members make comments on liking that agenda changed, what do you do with those?
We've only had it one time, and that happened Friday, and what I did was I posted the agenda because the secretary was in conflict with the chairman, and the secretary is the person under Robert's rules that you adopted to prepare the agenda.
So the
And so I
chairman has
did-
no approval over the agenda.
Not under the rules you adopted, that's correct. Okay, then you show me where it is. Get your book and you show me where the chairman gets to adopt the agenda unilaterally.
Okay.
Unilaterally.
I do come to the meetings and ask that the agenda be approved.
Exactly. That's part of the normal process. And in an open meeting, it gets discussed, public comment, and then it gets adopted.
Is there any
Prior to that,
particular
it's a
issue
draft.
that has given you heartburn of what occurred on June the 10th?
No, nothing gave me heartburn on what happened on June the 10th. What's happened, what gives me heartburn is the fact that you are, for whatever reason, incapable of telling the truth about this process, and
You've
you are
said
out
that
in the
a couple of
media.
times, Mr. Ray, and that's been very inappropriate and very rude, but go ahead.
Well, then stop lying.
Excuse me? I would like to tell people what happened at that meeting in which you directly looked at my face and lied, so please go ahead.
You'll have plenty of time, Mr. Friedley. You'll have plenty of time. I posted the agenda in accordance with the exact same procedure that we've done it every single time. I'm here, ready to do this work, and ready to proceed. You even this morning, I heard you insinuate that you tried to call my office yesterday, and I wouldn't take your call because I was in a closed-door meeting. A lie. I was in the courtroom over here calling a docket for about 4 hours, which is my paid job.
I can only repeat what your assistant told me.
Well, I can
Mr. Ray,
promise you, my
do
assistant didn't tell you.
do
I
us
was in
all a
closed-door
favor
meeting.
for the community here. Please look up the responsibilities of the chairman in the Roberts Rule of Order. Would you please look it up and tell us what the first paragraph of the
Why
Roberts
don't you
Rule-
tell us what it is?
Well, I'm trying to find it
Colonel
in
Crockett.
here. I don't have my data that I had.
Well, Mr.
I had to spend the weekend languishing over this and deciding what to do.
But I think you know where it is. Would you please read the rules where it says what the chairman's responsibility? I believe it says that the chairman is responsible for the agenda. I believe it's in there.
I'll try to look, Colonel Crockett. You and I we may not agree on everything, but I think we've been civil to each other, and I
Well,
think we've worked
I
well.
do want to be civil, but I would like you,
But
speaking
again,
for the city.
A, we're
look
not
at-
in a meeting. B, I'm not speaking for the city.
You don't
C,
have to answer this. You
I
don't
don't
have to
work
do
for
anything.
you.
You have a free speech right. I agree with that. But read what it says in Robert's Rule of Order for the responsibilities of the chairman. I think it says that he's responsible for the agenda, whether he works it through the secretary or whether however he wants to distribute it, he has a responsibility, and he was appointed by this body.
And he nominated and appointed a secretary, and I disagree with your assessment of Robert's rules.
Would you please just help me just for a second? I think it's worthwhile for the public
Let me
to
go
take the time.
ahead, Mr. Crockett and Mr. Ray, while you're looking at that, and let me just clarify a couple of comments. that Mr.
Chapter 47:7 says the secretary prepares the agenda for the chairman.
For the chairman.
41:7.
For the chairman.
Yes,
Why would you?
Read that again.
Yeah. Why
but
would,
it doesn't, it's not subject to approval. It's for the chairman to use in the meeting after it's
whatever the
adopted.
secretary puts in there, the chairman has no say-so, he just takes it and has to use it? Is
No,
that
no,
what
no.
your interp-
It's a
Is
draft
that your
agenda.
interpretation?
No, my interpretation is it's a draft agenda with numerous items, and then the body considers it and then adopts the things that are in it. Then the chairman uses the adopted agenda for the order of the meeting. But there's nothing in there that says the chairman, A, has approval of the agenda, or B, can unilaterally set an agenda. That's what made me very uncomfortable.
No one here
He
said that.
did.
No.
One
he-
person
He
said my
proposes the agenda, and then it's approved at the beginning of the meeting.
That's
We're
not, you weren't
disagreeing
involved in
with
the
that.
email, sir. That's not what he said.
Well, I mean, either way, I'm sorry about the mic irregularity here. I'm not trying to yell.
I'm not either. I apologize.
And no,
But
listen,
I'm here to talk about this face-to-face, person-to-person in this meeting. I'm not scared of anything.
but I
For people to
think
go
you're.
on media and say things is just wrong.
But I believe what you just read, or however you got your quote, is that if the secretary does the administrative part of the chairman's role to
No, that's not what I
to
said.
establish
The secretary
the draft
prepares
of the agenda that's going to be approved by the body
Yes.
at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes.
It's the chairman's role to approve, it's the chairman's role to direct the secretary is what it sounds like you just said, but it doesn't sound like the secretary, which I think Ms. Moorhart absolutely stepped out of bounds. Absolutely stepped out of bounds. She went behind the back of the chairman, and I think it's dishonorable to this group
Well, then you've
that
been
she did
provided
that.
false information because she
It-
did the
it
same
just
thing
sounds-
she's
it-
done every single time.
It sounds like that's what happened in this time, and when Mr. when
Okay,
Mr.
Mr. Crockett.
Go ahead.
And Mr. Ray, if you would please feel free to look at the issue. I would only say that, unlike what Mr. Ray said earlier, in previous issues, when Ms. Moorhart has sent the agenda on to all the members of the commission and on to me, I have sent several times on to you, Mr. Ray, and responded to the entire commissioners that I have no problems with the agenda as it is presented. Now, I took the assumption that that meant that if I had the authority to change something or want something changed, that that could occur. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Priscilla McGee, and I live at 1407 Gardenia Street, Bossier
Yes, ma'am.
City. I just want to know, what is the purpose of this meeting? There's only 3 of you here.
Correct.
What do you expect to get out of it? I mean,
I
what
would
is
say,
the
I would
purpose
say I
of it?
appreciate that question, but we have had workshops in which we have not had a quorum. We have had open meetings for the general public in which we have not had a quorum, and we have received public input, and the commissioners have always had a right to express their view as we've tried to get through these 22 chapters of the charter.
Right. I
So
have
we
been
cannot
here
take
for
any
most of
official
them.
business. We can only just discuss this amongst ourselves.
I'd like to ask we've got a councilman here this morning. I'd like to ask a few questions and just get some opinion. Mr. Hammonds, I don't think that we're getting anything done here. We're yelling and arguing at each other, and this is embarrassing.
Yeah,
I mean, this is going out to the public, and we're not doing anything here, but just digging a deeper hole. I'm wondering if
Why is
the
it going
question.
out to the public if
we
we're not in
could-
a meeting?
If we could meet, what, do you think there would be any opportunity for a town hall or a workshop where the charter can sit down with the council and we can come up with something other than arguing, throwing stones, throwing people under the bus, making threats, this has turned into a circus. I was honored that you asked me to come up here, and I'm saddened today about the behavior of multiple people, including myself. We could all be slower to speak, slower to anger, and quicker to listen.
Yes.
If there's any hope that we can sit down as a body of the charter and the city council and the citizens of this city, I think we're at a stage where we need to put ourselves aside and simply talk to the citizens what do you think?
Well,
Doing anything
we have
here.
to be very careful sitting down with the whole council because that's an open meeting law or a walk-in quorum that we all know is highly illegal. You can sit down with 3 of us at any time that y'all like. From sitting back here, this is only my 2nd charter meeting that I have been to. To say that I'm highly embarrassed right now is an understatement. This is not what the city council's convened the Charter Commission for. My personal opinion, what y'all need to do right now is y'all need to follow the rules. Y'all need to take roll. You do not have a quorum and you need to end the meeting. Y'all need to reconvene amongst yourselves as the charter and figure out how y'all are all going to come together and finish out this charter. We're on a deadline for this in July. The clock is ticking. That is my personal opinion. That's me as Brian Hammond's Joe citizen right now coming up here and speaking. I'm not up here speaking as Brian Hammond, City Councilman, District 1. I'm up here as a citizen because in all end, I am a citizen. I'm a citizen of Bossier City. I'm a tax-paying citizen and I'm a voter.
Yes, sir.
And that is what I would suggest to y'all right now.
I think it's a good suggestion.
What y'all are doing right now, we're going to accomplish nothing. Everybody's tempers are high right now.
Yes.
Everybody's feelings are on their shoulders. And I think everybody we need to end this meeting, go have a cup of coffee, something, sit down and talk about it and reconvene and see what y'all can come up with.
We do. When we come up here, we need to address these issues with dignity, self-respect, and calming words. I apologize to you those of you that took the time to be here this morning. It's been an embarrassment.
Right.
And it's just not what we need to be
Before we
doing.
adjourn, David, before we adjourn, just a couple quick comments and clarifications. And it is not-
Mr. Hammonds, I appreciate your words, and if I've done anything to embarrass you, I apologize. When I drive to work and I hear this gentleman on the radio saying things that aren't true.
I think,
I
again,
can't take it
Mr.
anymore.
Ray, if you insult me one more time, I will just make a point of clarification. In the meeting, in our meeting, in which we went back over and did not finish, we had an order of consensus. So everybody understands, we had several items of consensus. We voted on those items of consensus in total. There were about 55 of them. Mr. Johnson, at his request, asked that they would be brought up again under old business so that everyone would have an opportunity to talk about those. I felt that was very appropriate. The commission as a group left those under old business to come back. We did not re-vote on those 55. We did review the 55 and went through. At the last meeting on June 10th, these items that are currently listed under old business, there was no discussion about asking that they be brought up under old business by the commission. Therefore, I have to tell you, I was a little bit surprised that Mr. Morehart, with the evidently approval of Mr. Ray,
They were on
chose
the
to put
agenda,
those.
sir.
Mr. Ray, I'm talking.
They were on the agenda.
Mr. Ray, they were on the agenda, they were approved. And once they were approved, there was no reason to go back and re-vote. Now, we can go back and, as the request says, we can revisit them. I left them on the agenda. We will not re-vote on any of those items, but we can definitely review them and talk about them. I think that sometimes when things don't go the people's way that they'd like, and everything that's open to interpretation and comment. I have my own opinion. Mr. Ray has his own opinion. They may differ. It doesn't make him a liar, and it does not by any means make me a liar. If I can get a motion to adjourn,
Well, there's no meeting.
Mr. Chair.
I'm just saying I'd like to officially adjourn the meeting.
Well, there's no meeting. to
Is there
adjourn.
anyone who doesn't want to adjourn? If not, feel free to stay here. Meeting
I
adjourned.
think what, whatever, Mr. Hammond's laid out, he had the Robert's rules for you to take roll and to adjourn. I think that's the appropriate thing, again, to follow the rules, but if you
Shane
want to do your own
Cheatham,
thing.
absent. Preston Friedley here. Lee Jeter.
Present.
David Johnson.
Present.
Sandra Morehart. Absent. Julia Parks. Absent. Pandarina Sumis. Absent. Vicky Whitman. Absent. Lisa Wilhite. Absent. Ex officio members. Amanda Nottingham.
Present.
Present. Richard Ray. Are you present?
Obviously, I'm present. But we don't.
Sometimes
this is the
things
first
are
time-
not so
just-
obvious.
Just like what you do,
If
Mr.
there is,
Freely.
is there
This is
any
the first
other
time you've asked
comments?
for.
Now do we have, and should we adjourn? Mr. Jeter, your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, the comments I was going to make prior was that we do a roll call off since we established the fact that we do not have a
Do
quorum.
not have a quorum.
And once we do not have a quorum, then we cancel the meeting or set another date for our next meeting.
Right. We are scheduled to have another meeting Thursday night at 6 PM in the Civic Center. The mayor has made it appropriate for cameras and the IT department to carry that, so it'll be broadcast live. I would hope that those members that are not here tonight will not find it inconvenient to be there on Thursday so we can have a quorum. If we do not, I will tell you that at that point, the Charter Commission will have to look at the point that we have done all we can do, and we'll probably have to pass on what we've done so far back on to the mayor and the city council. This meeting is not adjourned or adjourned according to our attorney, or not our attorney, Mr. Ray.